everyone, hope you're well. Today we're going to look at Jackson's paper and compare them to some of the big brands. And so before we start, back in December I did my last haul of 2020 and I got a few paper blocks, which I'll just grab for you quickly. So these are the blocks. I heard loads of good reviews and I couldn't resist trying them because they're super affordable. And the paper that I tried from Jackson's own brand before, which is this green block we'll look at in a minute, I was really enjoying it. So I thought, let me try these out as well. Now, the great thing about these blocks, they come in a wide range of different formats. I've never seen this across any other paper brand, but literally you can get smaller blocks than this one, which is already quite small and cute. You can see like the same width but longer, and you know, like a more kind of comparable to a A5, and more sizes. So they're super cute and useful to have all different formats. Now, the other thing I want to say to you, if you're new to watercolor paper in general, what are blocks for? So they're there to help you avoid buckling of the paper. So if you like to use a lot of water in your paintings, what tends to happen is if you draw on a loose piece of paper. So here is an example of a pad. So this is a Winsor Newton cold press, but a pad is just connected on one side here, which you can easily tear off. And if you use a lot of water, what can happen is the paper will start buckling. There is a sort of more professional way of doing things, like stretching paper, which involves a lot of work, and even the professional artists don't enjoy doing that at times. This is done for you in these blocks. So what happens is, if you use a lot of watercolor and you see the paper starting to bulge a little bit, just wait for it to dry completely, and then it tends to settle and become completely flat, and then you take the paper off. For the purpose of the demonstration today, I have taken all of the papers off, so obviously that is, you know, no longer going to apply to the buckling of the paper. But we're not looking at the buckling today, we're looking at how watercolors will behave on these papers. The other thing I wanted to mention, to take off the paper from the blocks, you need some sort of a palette knife. I like to use a shorter one and kind of use it this way. So there's two different ways of having these blocks sealed. Some brands prefer to do it on one side, like so. So it could be any side. Have a good look on your block, and then you find the sheet of paper, kind of separate it with your blade or your palette knife, and then what I do is I hold my thumb here and I run and pull the palette knife all the way down. So I'll show you just on this side. So like that. Then I turn it around and I do the same again, kind of pull it towards me down, and it comes off easily. There are other brands that like to do it in the corner, and I think that's this one here. Let me just find that one for you. Yes, so this is the Jackson's one, and you can see there's a corner here. So they left the corner, all the other sides are sealed, and you do the same thing. You find the corner. I actually find the corner easier to do. So you find the corner like that, insert your knife and do exactly the same as we did. So let's recap of what sort of papers I have here. The papers we will look at today are the Jackson's, and we're going to compare them to the larger brands. I'll explain everything. I've got everything set out and prepared. So the blocks that I have bought are these ones. There are three sizes but two different papers. They're all designed for watercolor, and they are all 300 GSM. All are acid free and all have 15 sheets of paper in there. The difference is obviously the format, and then the orange one is a cold pressed and the green one is a rough. in terms of the color of the paper, it says here natural white across all of them. I believe there are different paper colors. I've got these two sheets here. There's no need for me to use, you know, the bigger sheet because it's exactly the same as this one. And then the third Jackson's paper, so I've got here Jackson's cold pressed rough, so this one was rough, and I've got another rough one which is a completely different one, and you can see the branding is not there. It's completely plain. It's got this like khaki green soft cover to it, and it's also block. It's a rough, but the paper is completely different. I'll show you a close-up of the paper texture. So here I have 3 types of paper for you. They're all titles, so you can see the difference. And there we go. So a cold press has a light texture. A rough has this kind of rounder, grainy texture. And this is a kind of like a line texture. So you can choose how you like to work on this paper, whether you prefer it like lengthwise or whether you prefer it this way. So you can work on it. And then to compare these papers with a few of the big brand other papers, I thought I'll pull out some of mine. And here they are. So my all-time favorite paper used to be Winsor Newton cold pressed 300 GSM paper. I really used to go through and love it. I went probably about 10 pads of this. So this is the pad one. It's not a block. I love the texture. Its texture is very comparable to the rough, in fact. So if I put them side by side, you can see the texture is fairly similar. So that's that. Then I also have, let's see, 3 other papers which are all 100% cotton. Now these are super expensive, okay? So that's why I thought I'll compare it versus the very affordable and beautiful Jackson's paper and see how different they do. So of course I couldn't resist having an Arches. I have a rough paper. It's not my favorite because it's just so rough that you wouldn't, like, I struggled writing this title here because it's just super rough. Some of the papers have a color name to them, some don't, so I wonder whether that means that's the only color they do have. So like we looked at those 2 papers, they said natural white by Jackson's. The other big block didn't have a name or the color name of the paper. The Artistico again doesn't have the Arches doesn't have a color name, but we do know it's 300 GSM, rough and 100% cotton. Then we have another Winsor Newton. Now this is a similar Winsor Newton that we looked at before, but it's a hot pressed and it's a block as well. So I cut down a sheet of that and I will show you the 2 Winsor and Newton next to each other, so you can see the difference of the paper texture. And then let's also look at the Arches next to the Winsor Newton. So you can see the texture is actually fairly similar. Obviously this one is more rough, but you can feel the gelatin on this paper like you can't feel it on anything else. So that's why I don't tend to love this one, but colors come out super bright anyway. Okay, so that's the comparison of the texture right here. If we bring in the rough from Jackson's, you can see they're all very similar, all 3 of them. The Arches being the most textured. And then the final paper I wanted to bring into this is the Artistico Fabriano, which I bought a test pack on Jackson's, and it had 2 paper colors in there, extra white and traditional white. I'm using the extra white because it goes in line with all the other papers, and I'd say that the Arches is the most like off-white out of all of them. The rest are very comparable. And if we look at the natural white from Artistico, it's even more off-white than the Arches. So if I just show you like that, you can see already. So it's also 300 GSM. It's also cold pressed, and it is extra wide, and like I said, it's 100% cotton paper. So I've got 3 papers that are 100% cotton, and if I'm just going to place these, so there we go, Winsor Newton. So this is the smoothest one, this is the roughest one out of all of them, I'd say. And then let's just place it like that for you and give you a good look at the texture. So I hope you can see the texture. There we go, quite well. Okay, so let's start our swatch test. So in terms of colors, I have picked 9 colors which represent all different values of watercolor. So I've got some which are more opaque, some transparent. I've got a cobalt, I've got a chromium, I have a granulating color, a pigment separating. So hopefully across this range we will see how different they work on the different papers. So let's start the swatching, and we will catch up at the end of it. Okay, so before I start, I was going to share with you that I'm using the Jackson's Raven 10-0 brush. It's got really soft, smooth bristles, and it holds a good amount of water. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the papers from Jackson's and go all the way back, doing sort of every color, and then we will let them dry and we'll come back and look at the colors. And I'll probably speed up this process just because it will be the same 9 colors across 7 sheets of paper, so you know it will become boring watching it. So that's what I will do, and I will see you soon.
Carried all the weight on my shoulder, had me going never once I told you no.
So I decided to actually do a slightly different way of swatching to waste less of the colors. I'll do every color on every piece of paper and then I'll move to the next one. Now I'll tell you also the colors while I'm at it. So we've got Mission Gold by Mijello, and this is a leaf green. Then we have Schminke Horadam, which is transparent orange, and it is, where are the pigments? PO71. Then we have another Schminke, Cobalt Violet Hue, and this one, let's see, is, yeah, for some reason I can't see the pigment on that one. Then we have Cobalt Blue Violet by Daniel Smith, and this one is PB28 and PV19, so it separates beautifully. Hopefully we'll see that. Then we have Daniel Smith Prussian Green, and this one is PB27, PY97, so 2 pigments as well. Then we have Schminke Horadam Chromium Oxide Green, which is PG17. Daniel Smith Shadow Violet, which is PB29, PG18, and PO73. Yeah. And then we have Daniel Smith Hematite Violet Genuine. And the Genuine is a mineral, so there won't be any pigment information. And finally, Schminke Mars Black, PBK11. So this is quite a famous pigment, super granulating black. Okay, so let's start.